Welcome to the Summer Food Service Program Basics Application Process Training hosted by Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs. This training will review the application process on how to become a sponsor of the Summer Food Service Program. The Summer Food Service Program will be referred to as SFSP for the duration of this training. In this training, we will review information on the application process, how applications are approved, what happens if an application is denied, what a sponsor may appeal, and a planning checklist for your program. There are a few steps to the SFSP application. The first is to complete the SFSP eligibility assessment. There are two parts to this. The first part covers basic eligibility requirements, while the second ensures that the organization meets what is referred to as financial viability. After that is completed, ODE CNP will assign to you the new SFSP sponsor staff training. These trainings are available on the ODE CNP SFSP public website. All trainings must be completed by persons who will have oversight of operation of the SFSP. Additionally, CNP web forms must be completed and submitted to give the organization access to CNP Web. This is the system that holds the online forms which program operators use to communicate program specifics to ODE CNP, and ODE CNP issues its approval. After training is submitted, the next step is to complete and submit offline and online forms. Later in this presentation, I will review all the required forms and where you can find them. The last step is a pre-approval review. This may be done in person or virtually. The pre-approval review cannot be conducted until the application materials have been reviewed by a child nutrition specialist and any and all corrections made to the application materials. A child nutrition specialist from ODE CNP will make an appointment to review the applicant's site prior to final approval. After completion of the pre-approval visit, the child nutrition specialist will review with the applicant any areas that do not meet SFSP requirements and will request changes or implementation of procedures prior to approval of the application. Once all changes or procedures are received, or if no changes are required, the application may be approved and the agreement will be signed. If an application is denied, the applicant organization may request an appeal, and ODE CNP will provide appeal rights at the time of denial. There are a few steps to the SFSP application. The first is to complete the SFSP eligibility assessment. If you already completed this, great! You're on your way to getting your SFSP application going. If not, please visit ODE CNP's Becoming a Summer Food Service Sponsor webpage. Here you will find a link to this assessment. Information collected on this form includes basic information about the organization, a preliminary list of meal site locations, and the organization's participation in other federal child nutrition programs. The Becoming an SFSP webpage is linked to in the video description below. ODE CNP will review the eligibility assessment. If the organization meets initial requirements to apply, outlined in the SFSP Basics Sponsor Eligibility Training, ODE CNP will request documentation to complete a financial viability check. Financial viability means that the organization could continue to serve SFSP meals if reimbursement for serving those meals is interrupted, meaning the organization does not depend on receiving funding for the SFSP in order to serve meals. In order to complete the financial viability check, the following items will need to be submitted: 3 months of bank statements, Form 990, and 3 months of board meeting minutes. ODE CNP will give specific months for the bank statements and the board meeting minutes when they are requested. If your organization is determined to be eligible and financially viable, you will be sent a follow-up email with training requirements and forms to get your organization set up in CNP Web. In regards to the CNP Web forms, there will be 3 forms that need to be completed and submitted: New Sponsor, User Authorization, and At Site forms. The new sponsor and ad site forms provide general info to set up the organization in CNP Web. A user authorization needs to be completed for each staff member that will have access to CNP Web. Those who will need access to CNP Web are staff that will be responsible for submitting applications and claims for reimbursement. In addition, respective staff can have view access only if they will not be submitting applications or claims. CNP Web logins cannot be shared among users in an organization. Training for the SFSP must be completed by the staff member or members with direct oversight of the program. It is recommended that more than one staff member complete all required trainings in the event staff responsible for the program are unavailable or leave their position. On this slide is a screenshot of the ODE CNP SFSP training website. To document that your organization has completed the trainings, the staff member or members that have completed the trainings must submit a training certification email to the Community Nutrition email inbox at ode.communitynutrition@ode.oregon.gov. Step 3 in the application process is to submit required offline and online forms. All offline forms are available on the ODE CNP SFSP application website referenced earlier in this presentation. These forms will also be sent with the follow-up email once Step 2 is completed. All applicable forms must be completed and submitted to ODE CNP. I will review these forms next. All online forms are available on CNP Web, which is ODE CNP's online application and claiming system. Later in the presentation, I will review CNP Web and how to access the online forms. On the SFSP application website, you will find most of the required offline forms for the application. You will also find an application checklist that details all the required forms. Let's take a look at what these offline forms are. The first form is the State Agency Sponsor Agreement. In order to participate in the SFSP, organizations must enter into a permanent program agreement with ODE CNP. The agreement is a legally binding document that specifies the rights and responsibilities of both the sponsor and ODE CNP and should be read carefully before being signed. The person who signs the agreement must have the authority to enter into contracts with the state on the organization's behalf. This person would also be the authorized representative in CNP Web. For organizations that currently operate one or more other child nutrition programs, for example CACFP or NSLP, they only need to complete an addendum to the agreement. Under the agreement, the sponsor must agree to operate a nonprofit food service during the agreed-upon period, usually from May through September for children on school vacation, serve meals that meet the program requirements at the approved sites during times designated as meal service periods by the sponsor, and serve the same meal to all children, train administrative and site personnel as required, claim reimbursement only for types of meals specified in the agreement and served without charge to eligible children at approved sites during the approved meal service period, maintain proper sanitation and health standards as required by state and local law, maintain on file documentation of required site visits and reviews, and make all accounts and records relating to the program available to authorized officials on request, and retain financial and administrative responsibility for the program. Applicants should read the agreement thoroughly before signing to understand all program requirements. Applicants must also submit budget. The SFSP budget provides high-level details of what your organization expects to receive in SFSP reimbursement for the year and what your organization expects to expend to run the nonprofit food service. You will need to include estimates of expenses by category, for example, food service labor, food costs, supply costs, etc. The SFSP budget is an Excel document and is available on the ODE CNP SFSP application website and in CNP Web. If your organization operates the National School Lunch Program, the document is not required. documentation of tax-exempt status under the Federal Internal Revenue Code of 1986 if they are private nonprofit entities. Note: SFSP regulations do not require faith-based sponsors to obtain federal tax-exempt documentation. W-9 form. And finally, a Unique Entity ID, or a UEI. The federal government transitioned away from the Data Universal Numbering System, more commonly known as the DUNS, and replaced it with a UEI. To obtain a UEI, visit sam.gov. If your organization already has a DUNS number, please review your entity registration record on sam.gov. The UEI will appear on the left side of the record. A written policy statement on free meals is also required. This policy statement, which must be approved by ODE CNP, explains that the same meal is served to all enrolled children regardless of reimbursement status and without discrimination against any child because of race, color, national origin, sex, gender, age, or disability. Applicants must submit documentation demonstrating site eligibility for all area eligible sites. Please review the Summer Food Service Program Basics Site Eligibility and Documentation Training for information on how to determine and document site eligibility. Applicants must submit a sample menu for all meal types offered at each site. Lastly, all applicants must certify that a training program will be conducted for monitors and site personnel. Include information explaining when the training will be held and the topics that will be discussed. Applicants can use the ODE CNP created SFSP training form on the application website to document SFSP training for staff. The next two documents are only required if the applicant is using another organization to provide meals. For sponsors that plan to use a food service management company to provide meals, provide a copy of the invitation for bid. Sponsors should also submit plans for advertisement for bids if they intend to contract with a food service management company. For sponsors that plan to use a school food authority or other organization to provide meals, provide a copy of the vended meal agreement. That concludes a review of the offline forms that applicants need to submit. In addition to the offline forms, online forms also need to be completed and submitted as part of the SFSP application. To submit forms through CNP Web, sponsors must submit CNP Web User Authorization Request forms to ODE CNP. This form is completed in Step 2 of the application process, and user access to CNP Web should be provided prior to starting this step of the application process. Online forms submitted through CNP Web include Sponsor Information Sheet. The Sponsor Information Sheet includes contact information for the organization and staff contact information. Applicants may request advance payments through the Sponsor Information Sheet. These are payments that may be received before the program begins to pay for administrative and operating costs that are incurred before the program starts. The Management Plan. The management plan includes details on program oversight as well as staffing responsibilities for the SFSP. If the applicant is already participating in the CACFP, they may elect to use their CACFP management plan for the SFSP. Site information sheets for all participating sites. The site information sheet includes documentation that the site is capable of managing an effective meal service times, documentation of eligibility, average daily attendance, site meal caps, etc. Budget. In addition to the offline budget, applicants will submit an online budget in CNP Web. Applicants will need to submit estimated operating costs and estimated administrative costs for the upcoming program year based on the approved offline Excel budget. An ODE CNP staff person will work with you throughout the application process and provide you with technical assistance and other guidance as needed. Within 30 days of receiving a completed application, ODE CNP will notify the applicant of its approval or disapproval. If the application is incomplete, ODE CNP will notify the applicant within 15 days and provide technical assistance to help the applicant complete the application process. Approval to participate must be denied to any applicant found to be seriously deficient in the operation of any federal child nutrition program, including those disqualified from the CACFP. Sponsors will receive reimbursement only for meals that are served after they have been approved for program operations. Sponsors must be certain that they have been approved before they begin their meal service. The last step, a pre-approval review, is completed to ensure that an organization can adequately implement the operation of the SFSP, as well as giving ODE CNP staff an opportunity to provide technical assistance to the applicant. A child nutrition specialist from ODE CNP will make an appointment to review the applicant's site prior to final approval. At the end of the pre-approved review, the child nutrition specialist will review with the applicant any areas that do not meet SFSP requirements and will request changes or implementation of procedures prior to approval of the application. The pre-approval review may be conducted on-site, virtually, or a combination of both. The pre-approval review cannot be conducted until the application materials have been reviewed by a child nutrition specialist and any and all corrections made to the application materials. Once all changes or procedures are received, or if no changes are required, the application may be approved and the agreement will be signed. Occasionally, applications must be denied if the applicant organization is unable to demonstrate administrative capability to adequately implement operations of the SFSP. This can occur at any point of the SFSP application process, including after the pre-approval review, if issues found on site are not corrected. If an application is denied, the applicant organization may request an appeal, and ODE CNP will provide appeal rights at the time of denial. Any applicant denied participation in the program or denied program payment may obtain a hearing by an official other than the one directly responsible for the original determination. At the time of the applicant's denial, ODE CNP will tell the applicant whom to contact for an appeal. The following ODE CNP actions may be appealed: denial of sponsor's request for an advance payment, denial of a sponsor's claim for reimbursement, except on decisions made by FNS with respect to late claims or upward adjustments, termination of a sponsor's or a site's participation in the program, denial of a sponsor's site application, and, if applicable, denial of a food service management company's application for registration or the revocation of a food service management company's registration. There are deadlines for each step of the SFSP application process. In order for an organization to be considered to be an SFSP sponsor, an eligibility assessment must be received by March 17th. The deadline for submitting training certification and CNP web access forms is April 1st. All online and offline forms are due by April 21st. Finally, once the forms are reviewed and a pre-approval has been completed, ODE has a deadline of June 1st to approve all new SFSP applications. After June 15th, no new sponsors or renewing sponsors can be added to operate in the current program year without waiver approval from the USDA. Sponsors that apply to operate the program during emergencies, outside of the summer months, are exempt from application deadlines. Once an initial application has been approved by ODE CNP, more limited annual updates to the application will be required. ODE CNP will notify returning sponsors prior to the renewal application period of the specific renewal application requirements. ODE CNP may exempt standard application procedures for those sponsors that want to provide program benefits in times of emergencies, for example, unanticipated school closures from October through April, or at any time during the year for an area with a continuous school calendar. These sponsors may be exempted from filing an application if they have participated in the SFSP in the current year or in either of the two previous calendar years. Planning checklists for the SFSP are available on the ODE CNP SFSP webpage under Program Forms and Templates. There are two versions of the form. One is blank and the other has planning suggestions. A link to this page is in the video's description. If you have any additional questions that were not addressed today, please reach out to your assigned child nutrition specialist. Here's a short message from the Oregon Department of Education. ODE supports equity and excellence for every learner and seeks to work with school districts, education service districts, and community partners like you. We believe all children should have access to a high-quality, well-rounded learning experience. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you for taking this training. We hope you found it helpful.